yet.
All right.
All right, what now?
Welcome back to Bite-Size Bickering. I haven't said the name of this once, like, in
First
all
time
our
in
recording.
7 weeks.
Yeah.
We've announced the name.
Exactly.
You'll probably see it.
Are we on 7? Yeah, we are.
Never.
We're on
Yeah, we are.
7?
We're on 7. Thanks, Jack, for keeping up with that number.
I like numbers.
All right, I'm Gabe.
Oh, I'm Isaac.
I don't think we introduced ourselves
Ah,
last week.
fuck.
Oh my God.
We did. Pretend we did.
Pretend we did.
The last
You
one
didn't
was
hear the
also
last
me.
This is, Isaac.
Yeah.
I'm Arlen.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Vanessa.
I don't know why, but I was reminded of a Disney Channel show in that moment. Like, just like, I'm Vanessa.
Thanks.
It's not an insult. I'm just-
I don't know.
I
That's
don't know,
pretty
considering
insulting.
how most of those Disney Channel brads turn out.
All right.
Just
So
saying.
this topic, reboots, remakes,
Okay.
like anything that is like vaguely different from like the original source at which it came from. I feel like we talk about that now. Before we did this recording session, I showed Isaac 3 pilots.
Right.
And out of 5 stars, I want you to rate each one. So the first pilot was for a show called Grimm, which I believe aired for 6 seasons, and the first season aired in like 2012. I want to say no, it was 2011. Yeah,
Okay, so out
2011.
of 5.
out of 5. How
Out of
would
5.
you rate that one? This is just the pilot.
Just a pilot, and probably like a 2.5.
2.5. 2.5. Really.
Yeah,
I would have given it a 2.
a 2. Yeah, something like that.
Like, well, so the first, pilot episode of Grimm, you watch it and you're like, I don't know if this is bad or if they're trying to figure out like a type
Exactly.
of humor.
Exactly.
And then you like watch a few more and you're like, all right, so this is just their humor. And then you're like, I don't know
I
if
think-
I really want to watch this.
I think here's how I describe it. I think I give pilot episode a 4.
Okay.
I give it a 4. I give the whole first season a 4, and then like it slowly declines from there. But and here's why it declines, is because it goes from being a good show to being a fun show. And I think when a show is fun, like if it's fun throughout like its whole run, like beginning to end, it's fine
Mhm.
because people are like, it's a fun show.
Right.
But like when a show is like really good and people talk about it and like talk about what happened in the last episode, and then it devolves to a fun show, then it's like it's a piece of crap. Is what it is. But really, 2.5.
2.5, definitely.
All right. Second one I showed you.
Second
Once
one
Upon a
was
Time.
Once Upon a Time. Okay, that one I definitely give more like a 4, 4.5.
4.5.
Because I felt way more engaged watching that first pilot episode than I did with
I
Grimm.
would agree.
I watched the whole first season of that show. Also 4-ish.
I haven't watched any of these, by the way. Just gonna say.
You haven't watched any of these, really?
No, I haven't.
So why is this under the topic of remakes?
I more retellings because it's
Ah,
Very
A,
sure.
it's
Word.
tellings of fairy tales. B, both pilots aired in the same week.
Okay.
With like the same premise of like episodic adventures and explorations into fairy tales.
But they're very different.
Same
Yeah.
year, like too.
Cool.
So like,
Okay.
and that's what was interesting to me about these two, and that's why I picked them because like I knew Isaac would like appreciate that little like history bit about it because it was these two shows competing. So like when they devolve, they devolve differently because Once Upon a Time is just so hit and miss with its seasons, but it's not
so
like
true.
consistently bad. It's like good, bad, good half, bad half because like it has 2 seasons of like consistent story throughout both seasons, and then it becomes like each half has a different villain,
Mm.
right?
Right.
And so like it's so hit or miss with each like thing. Because like they have to follow like trends and what's popular, so they had a whole half of a season dedicated to Frozen,
That's true.
and it honestly, here's the thing, was not the worst one. I think the worst one,
Also true.
yeah, the worst one for me has to, well, last season was pretty bad.
I think I've seen those
The most recent season
I don't watch Once
ended
Upon a
this
Time.
year finally, after 7 seasons, and It was pretty bad because it did something that has never been successful in any show history, which is another reason I picked this series in particular,
Okay.
is that it had a soft reboot. Which
Interesting.
soft reboots never are successful. Like, it didn't work for Scrubs. It didn't work for... God, I think, like... How I Met Your Mother pseudo did one, I guess, for their last season. But for anyone who doesn't know what a soft reboot is, it's where, like, you basically change the main cast and characters and, like, all the villains with, like, it being the same consistent story from previously, but, like, basically all that shit doesn't matter now. You're focusing on these new characters. And it doesn't really work because everyone's invested in the old characters, not these new pieces of shit wandering through.
Yeah.
The new season was definitely interesting, but it was probably the worst one. Next to, I think The Wicked Witch was pretty fucking bad. Oh, no. There was one where it's just like a conglomerate of villains that they faced.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
like
like
Maleficent,
3
Ursula,
villains.
and Cruella de Vil. Yeah, you heard.
Wacky shit.
Yeah, it's a pretty fucking wacky show. Now, last pilot I made you watch
Yeah.
is Riverdale.
Did we actually finish that one?
We had 5 minutes
Oh,
left.
we
We
had 5 minutes.
practically
Finished it. Yeah.
Uh,
I don't know.
I don't know either.
So here's the problem with Riverdale is definitely not my well that first episode
it's
is not my style of show for sure. So I don't but like as far as getting engaged in it, like a 3.5.
So you liked it better than Grimm.
I liked it better than Grimm. I thought it was better than Grimm.
Heathen. But to be fair, Riverdale fascinates me. Isaac's been hearing me bitch about it for weeks.
Yeah, Gabe threatened to do this whole episode on Riverdale.
I threatened to do it. I'm not joking. This is a legitimate conversation I had with Jack.
But then I would have been forced to actually have to watch Riverdale.
No, you wouldn't have.
I did one episode on Death Note movie, and I watched that. No one else did.
Wait, the live action brand new one?
Yeah, the live action 2017.
Can we do a podcast on the show sometime? That would be fun.
It came up.
It came up. Don't worry. But
Anyway.
so Riverdale. Who has ever read an Archie comic, or at least heard of the Archie?
Yeah, I
comic?
know.
I
Archie.
raised my hand and realized that was stupid, so yeah, I did.
Well, we're
I'm
recording
vaguely familiar.
Oh, okay.
I'm vaguely familiar with Archie.
Yeah, vaguely.
So anyway, Riverdale is the dark and gritty live-action TV version of the Archie comics. It's just the look Arlen gave, like, the floor. Like, he couldn't even look me in the eye.
Yeah, no, I've heard of this. I was like, and I've still been scratching my head about it since I first heard
And
about
it is... it's just... Every goddamn problem in that show is fascinating to me because every problem is the same level of intensity. Every problem is 10 on the Richter scale of problems.
No matter what it is.
It's like dead. The first episode, someone dies.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's
First
true.
episode, someone dies. And that is just as much of a problem as getting on the fucking cheerleading squad.
Oh, God.
It is just mind-boggling, like, the thought process, like, these people have. I don't understand how people get from point A to point B.
That does sound like Archie, though, so...
No!
No
Like,
one
Archie
dies.
just has
No,
stupid problems.
No, but, like, the idea that, like, the whole idea of Archie is they make such a big deal out of, like, stupid things, and so it's the idea that now in this dark reboot...
But no one dies around him. The problem is he has no frame of reference for what actual problems are, because Archie's just life is just this conglomerate of fantasy that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Of like, he's like, my biggest problem is 2 girls like me. No one
Yeah.
like has that problem and has it go as well as Archie does.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's like still fine with it. They're all friends at the end of this, right?
Yeah.
We would say something differently.
I've never read Archie comics, but I might differ. I might beg to differ. Then
I'm
again,
not
I
saying
really
people
don't know.
have that problem. I'm saying that like everyone is too friendly about that problem.
Word.
In that situation. That's what's unrealistic. Is that everyone forgives each other for the problem. Like, no matter how severe it is. Right? Which
Right.
is fine for Archie comics because it's like this cartoonish thing made for people who can't handle like Batman dying. Right? So it's fine.
Right.
But fucking the TV show has real problems and also these stupid problems, and they handle it with the same level of goddamn forgiveness that I can't bear.
I feel like
Why do you watch this?
I almost feel
I'm
like
fascinated by this.
Why?
I almost
don't
feel like
it's not like it's. I think it's like a car crash that you can't look away from, but I think it's more like a piece of art I don't understand. It's a bunch of scribbles on paper that are confusing the fuck out of me, causing me to feel emotions,
More like-
and I don't know why.
it's more like a bunch of lights on a television screen. But anyway,
Shut the fuck up, Arlen.
I wish you luck.
I can't say, like, from experience that
wish
I
you
have
luck.
ever compared being in a car crash to staring at a piece of art I don't understand.
I feel like you're looking at the wrong art.
Yeah, you know what?
Probably. I'm
Probably.
watching Riverdale.
If the piece of art
I'm
is
already
making
partway
me...
through season 2. I can't
Alright,
stop.
So, having never watched the show and having like a very limited knowledge of Archie, to me this sounds almost like the show is like a cynical like satire of the comic, and so it's like basically saying, hey, in the comics,
Definitely not a
everyone's
satire. There's no way that's like supposed to be satire. It
I don't
takes
know.
itself too seriously.
Okay,
That in itself
danger
can be
of
satirical,
Yielding to
but-
Gabe's desire for this whole episode to be about Riverdale.
fair enough.
What are some other
Other
great
reboots?
reboots, remakes that you guys have seen?
Reboots. Well, one thing that just kind of it's just been on my mind lately. Have any of you guys seen Let Me In or Let the Right One In? It was like a vampire. Okay, well, I never got to see. I never watched any of the shows you guys are talking about, so I just want to talk about this for a hot second. Let the
Before I
Right One
bitch about
In was
Riverdale?
like. Let the Right One In was like this Swedish vampire film, and it's like about this boy who meets this little girl that's a vampire, and he ends up kind of being her new caretaker and like basically finding people to kill for her to eat and feed off of. And they made, and then like just like maybe a year or two after the Swedish film came out, Hollywood decided to do an American version with Chloe Grace Moretz, the girl who plays Hit Girl in the Kick-Ass movies.
I forgot to start the timer again. Anyway, keep going.
Ha!
Okay, this is gonna be a long episode. I think
yeah.
there's plenty to talk about.
Anyway, and the thing about it is that the American film doesn't really understand the relationship of the characters at all.
Like Ghost in the Shell?
Yeah, like Ghost in the Shell.
No, I wasn't being a dick. I'm being serious.
Like Ghost in the Shell. But the director of the Swedish version, which I can't remember his name, I know he was very upset when he learned that Hollywood was making an American version of his film, because his argument was, why make a remake of a good film? If there's a movie's good and everyone loves it, why remake it? There's nothing to improve. You should remake a movie that's really horrible and that no one liked,
Like they
and
did with Ocean's 11.
and try to and
Hey,
The original, the Frank
Is-
Sinatra version?
is excellent.
The Frank Sinatra version, no one likes that movie.
I love that movie.
Huh? I understand. It's a cool movie, because, like, Dean Martin,
It's
Sammy
the
Davis
Rat
Jr.,
Pack
like,
in a movie.
it's the Rat Pack in
in
a
a
heist.
heist movie.
but back
And I love
to
heist movies, but even I can admit that movie's a little.
I love that movie.
but back to Let the Right One In versus Let Me In. Another thing that the director of Let the Right One In said was that his movie is a movie about two children that just happens to have vampires in it. Where
So-
the American version is a
Quick
movie
question.
about vampires that happens to have two children in it.
So the American version has been made.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's out. They're both out.
They're both out.
They're both out now. They came out like a few years ago.
Okay. So this isn't like
Yeah.
something in production that he's viewed. This
No,
is like.
they're both out and just comparing both of them.
Now, did the
together.
world like the American version?
No. Most people
No.
did not like the
And
American one
world
as bad.
said no.
No, most people have said that the original Swedish version is a lot better. And the main reason why is because the character dynamics is a lot more interesting. In the original movie, the boy, I don't remember any of the kids' names, but the boy of the film who meets
Swedish
the
McSweet.
girl, he is kind of a sociopath. Like, he finds out that, like, he loves to kill animals, and he finds that he genuinely enjoys killing people. And so then he meets this girl, this little girl that's a vampire, who absolutely hates the fact that she has to kill people. And so that's why she finds other people to, like, kill people for her so she can eat them, just because, like, she can't bear to kill people herself. And so she's found this there's this old man who's been taking care of her for, like, years, because he loves this little girl, and he kills people to feed her because she can't feed herself. And so it's the idea of this sadistic serial killer boy finding a vampire that he can take care of and, like, kill people to satisfy his need to kill people, and also satisfy her hunger that is something that she can't do anything about. Where then the American version is an evil vampire girl who tricks a little boy into becoming her slave and killing people for her against his will.
That does sound
Two
like a worse
completely
movie.
different movies.
And also, the second one sounds like a worse movie.
Exactly. Because it basically, like, we find the boy does not like what's going on, but is, like, pretty powerless to do anything, and the vampire chick has no redeeming qualities. She's just a bitch that likes to force other people to kill people for her.
Right.
And there's absolutely no emotional depth. And, like, she even has, like, this old man who's been, like, killing people for her forever, but you can tell that the old man just completely resents everything. He resents her, he resents that he's stuck having to do this, and that he's been doing this forever, and he just wants to, like, die so that way he can stop having to kill people for this evil little vampire to eat, and stuff like that. And so it's just a completely different character dynamic.
So this isn't really on the topic of reboots and remakes, but it's similar concept of, like, two characters, like, being similar but different.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be the same story. It's just the context
is completely different. So,
and they change the fundamental characteristics of the characters.
So a really interesting series. Two of my favorite television series, Preacher and Jessica Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the first season of Jessica Jones, and Preacher, as you've all heard me rave about.
Yeah, I still need to see
we'll
Preacher.
Watch it after
I've
this.
read like a bit of the comic, like just the first few
10
issues
times more
of the comic. The comic's great.
The comic is fucking fantastic.
Oh yeah.
It's a bitch to get through though, because it's horrific.
Oh yeah.
But it is a Vertigo imprint though.
Yeah, Vertigo does.
But it's interesting because it's like it's the two different tellings of like two people with the same power. Because in Jessica Jones, the main villain, for the first season, he controls people. And they do whatever he tells them. Right. And that's the main protagonist in Preacher.
Right.
And so it's so interesting just seeing like how these two people like react like similarly and differently at the same time
to their power.
That's really neat.
Yeah. It's like really good, and especially Liam recommends like watching them episodically, like back to back.
Interesting.
Because he said that was really cool, because it's just like the difference in their thought process and like what each person's doing what they think is right.
Did they go through similar arcs at all, or
no?
like...
Because Kilgrave has had his power since he was like 7 years old in Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
Right.
Since he was a kid, well, the Preacher like just got his powers as an adult man.
Sure.
Right.
And he's also someone who's had like religion in his life, like throughout all of this.
Yeah, I was
going
gonna
to
say
has had to watch every word he said.
Right.
Like since he was little, because
he can't be
you
sarcastic.
Could tell someone to go fuck yourself, and that will end poorly.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was gonna like half jokingly say like it's probably one of the reasons why they make different choices is because one of them's a Catholic priest and the other one isn't.
Well, it's even like as you learn more about Jesse, which you've read the comics, like he has an interesting history.
Yeah.
Like he has an interesting history with like his family and like people around him, and like he's just a fascinating character.
Right.
And so
I'm still sad that they didn't give David Tennant purple skin in Jessica.
That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think I would have been happy.
What
if,
a nightmare
she
for
tried
the-
to poison him and he turned purple.
Yeah, that's
that
what I
would
was
be a
thinking. I
cool
thought
ending.
that like
I'm so
he
mad
was
that he
like they were
died.
gonna
I
do
think that's my
something.
worst complaint.
Well, I thought that because he was gonna like have his dad like basically amplify his powers so he's even more powerful, and I was so convinced that once he like amplified his powers that it was gonna turn his skin
Well,
purple.
I'm just disappointed that he died because the Purple Man is such like
He was such a
a
good
big
character.
Avengers villain.
Yeah. Right?
Because his power, like, he could just walk in the Stark Tower and tell them, like, take control of the Avengers
Yeah.
with his words.
Yeah.
He has such, like, a powerful power, and the fact that what makes David Tennant's version of him so interesting is, like, how restricted he is with his power.
Yeah.
Like, versus how, like how much power characters like Loki and Thanos and, like, them seek. Like... How, like, they seek all this power. They seek to essentially have what he has just naturally.
Right.
And, like, have domination over people. And, like, they want to do... They have all these big plans for it, and he just doesn't
He
care.
just dicks around and like
he just
does
like,
petty
his
shit.
goal is to live.
Yeah,
Like,
he
to
has
just-
no ambition.
Which is
really.
why, like, just to close off this podcast, that's my argument for why David Tennant's Kilgrave is the best villain in the MCU.
Because he's the first supervillain ever that doesn't have any ambition other than wanting his girlfriend to love him.
Yeah,
Or wanting this chick that he has a really unhealthy obsession with to love him.
because he has such, like, that's such a real problem in our world.
Well, and it's also kind of admirable because his whole goal is to make it so that way she'll stay with him willingly without him forcing her to.
Exactly.
And, like, that's fascinating as of it. Like, that's his goal. He's not ambitious. He's not after world domination. All he wants is for Jessica to stay with him willingly and to actually love him for who he is.
Right.
And it's like, and that's the villain's goal. That's what the villain wants, and it's fascinating.
It's just brilliant.
Agreed.
All right. I think we have like 30 more seconds left.
Any other?
Have you guys seen Dusk Till Dawn? We don't have time to talk about it, but the original movie is great. You gotta wait a year or so. Like, give it some time between watching the movie and the TV show, but watch the TV show too because it's also great for very different reasons and like in a very different way.
Oh, you've told me about this.
But they're both great. You should watch them both.
You've told me about this. But all right. Anyway.
Apparently, HBO's gonna wants to make a Watchmen series.
If that's at all
That
good,
would be really
that would be
interesting.
excellent.
That'd be interesting.
All right. That's our timer. So on to the next topic.